Hello, this is Tiffany with Mellow Vibes out here. It's actually 79 degrees today, trying to find the best light. But um, a while ago, I think I posted about triggers, right? What to do when you feel triggered, what I do when I feel triggered, and I asked you guys to share. So I wanted to just make a video about that too, especially like during this time where people are, quarantined, and maybe they're like quarantined with people who like literally trigger them, which can happen a lot with family. I want to again go over triggers. So I'm going to share some stuff with you. I'll have pictures of things that I do too, of the things that I do when I feel triggered. And one of the first things I do though is to ask myself why. I feel like a lot of the time, I feel like I'm kind of removed from this because I've worked on this for so long, but um, we can. I was just talking about this. I just got off a prayer call with my family. We have a monthly prayer call, and anyway, we're talking about like sometimes you don't even want to like see what it is in you, like address the things that is in you that you could work on. And so for me, being that I've studied mindfulness, like I am always trying to be mindful of like, why is it that I feel this way? What does this go back to? And so one of the things I do is I ask myself why over and over and over again. Like, why does this bother me so much? Why, whatever this person said, why did that like eat at me a little bit? Like, and you know, you ask yourself why over and over and over again, and it's kind of mindful, not mindful. It's kind of reminiscent of like timeline intervention, which we do in hypnotherapy, where you kind of just go back to the last time that happened. Again, go back to the last time that happened, and getting back to the last. You get to the core of when this started and why it is that you feel this way and why it still comes up. So I try to ask myself why and why and why to get to the root of what it is that bothers me so much. What does that remind me of? Um, and so that's one of the things that I do. And so I'm going to go through a whole bunch of stuff, and I hope you guys can pick up something that you can incorporate into your life of what to do when you feel triggered, because I do a lot of stuff. Um, and mostly I write, so that'll be another thing to talk about is I journal. Oh, actually, let's just talk about this right now, because I actually had something come up the other day watching Songland, and it was that her episode of season 2. So you go back and watch that. The song that ended up winning, um, which was really great. There was like a lot of really clever lines, and for me, like I like that song because I'm a songwriter. But um, anyway, listening to it at the end when her sings it, I just started tears streaming down my face, and I'm just like, why? And so I had to like journal about that, what triggered me there. I mean, there's a lot of times that I have songs like move me, but it was just where I have like a physical reaction to it. But I've only recently started to ask myself why, when that happens with like music, because I do a weekly exercise myself, which I've asked on my page, on my Mellow Vibes Facebook page, if anybody wants to join me in like this is a personal practice that I do, where I workshop a poem. I workshop a poem weekly, and I ask myself a bunch of prompts about like, what do I feel something with this? Like, does it remind me of something? What does it have to do with in the context of my life? So instead of doing a poem, this past week I did that song so I could really get to like why, what triggered me there, why I just started crying, and it like brought up so much stuff. I ended up journaling like 6 pages, which is like the most I've written for trying to workshop a piece. And yeah, it brought up so much stuff that was no longer valid really in my life, but it was just like it reminded me of a place that I never wanted to be again. Because I just felt like in this song, even though there were a lot of clever lines, like artistically there were a lot of clever lines in there, but like when you look at the lyrics, I just felt like it was just so much of just someone giving their power away to someone else, and looking for external factors to show them how to live and love and just looking for validation. And I don't vibe with that anymore. So, but there was a time when I did really feel like that. And so it just was a reminder of a place that I never want to be again. And so that was me getting to the root of why I started crying when I listened to that song. And so, yeah, so that was a journaling exercise that I did for that. And again, another thing that I'll do in my journal is I will write down different things that I want to manifest when I feel triggered. Because maybe I will get triggered. For an example, maybe you get triggered because you made an event and no one came to your event, and and so where does that come from? Well, we're not talking about the root of things anymore. Okay, you made an event and it triggered you and nobody came, and so maybe you want to manifest, like, I'll write down for example, it'd be like you write in the present that you have it. Like, so I am so grateful that my next event on so and so and so, brought in like 10 people who were really, engaged and wanted to participate in the event that I did. So just work on bringing something forth in the future. And say it as if you already have it. It's the same in prayer, right? You pray as if you already have. You pray in the expectation that you are going to receive. So that is, what you do when you are manifesting stuff. So I have a journal that is just. I have a journal, and then I have a journal that's just for manifesting stuff. So it's just a lot of I am grateful for, and then it's just cool to go back after a few weeks or so and just see what it is that I actually got off. Like, and I start checking off, like, oh snap, I actually got that, I got that. And then there's some things that you're still waiting on, and that's fine, because everything in its time, right? So yeah, so we're gonna go through a whole bunch more stuff, and let me know what you think and what you can incorporate into your schedule and what you can add to that. Put in the comments what it is that you do when you feel triggered. All right. So these are some pretty journals that I bought like 6 years ago, and I remember when I bought them too, because I was in my training for being I was going to be a caseworker, or was it? Yeah, I think it wasn't when I was going to be a caseworker. But anyway, so I went, there was like a Marshall's around the corner, and I went and I picked up all these journals, and I love journals and stuff like that. But I literally just started writing in them just like last year. It's so bad because I really wasn't even journaling around that time. Um, and I used to journal like all the time when I was a teenager, and that's like, besides songwriting, was the only like way that I got out of like my anger that I had. And so yeah, I have one for that I used for journaling, um, and for just my thoughts on like the poems that I'm reading. And then I have the one that says "You Are My Sunshine," that is specifically for the things that I want to manifest in my life, and prayerfully, the things that I want to manifest line up with what God has for me. But I, am specific about that because I've manifested things in my life before, like to the T. And so I'm super specific about like big things. And so I'm really specific about what it is that I want to see in my life. And yeah, and it's just, journaling is a great way to just get out so much stuff, because like there's always so many thoughts going on in your head, and it's just like a whole nother thing to actually have it down on paper. um, it's a clarifying thing to do, so that's such a great activity for me. So this is a poem by Rumi, and I've been reading poetry a lot. If there is a reason that I feel triggered, or some would say uh, re-stimulated, I will read poetry. And I've also been like reading poetry, just not to read poetry, but also to like examine it and journal about it. Um, so yeah, I have a book of Rumi poetry, and I have been reading poetry, and that, like, brings me out of whatever negative emotion I may have been feeling. Writing poetry. This is an older poem that is in my book Love Cycles. I wrote it about a guy, a relationship. It was like probably 7, 8 years ago. But yeah, I write poetry frequently, but well, let's say I used to write poetry frequently, but it's been something that I've done now consistently. There was a period where, of a few years, where I didn't write consistently, and just in the last year, and specifically in the last like 5 or 6 months, it's been every single week I'll write a poem, and it's been a great way for me to get out a lot of thoughts and leave everything on the paper. So this kind of goes in conjunction with the reading poetry, because usually I will examine a poem that I've read and write about whatever feelings get brought up while I'm reading it. If it's something that I resonate with, if there are any themes that I see, and then I'll kind of just write off of my thoughts from there. And so I do that every Friday, and it's great. So that's a great activity where I can put down so much focus and thought, and I just can get a lot out that way. Probably more than anything, even more than when I write songs. Like poetry is a bit more free, so that's always a great way for me to relax if I feel upset. Be in nature is a great one. These pictures are, I'm pretty sure it was behind my apartment in Philly. I had a bunch of woods. You know, Philly is honestly just a big park, just separated in sections. So I had all these woods behind my apartment building, and I would hike every so often, like a couple days a week. And yeah, just in general, just being in nature, taking a walk, breathing fresh air is a way to get out a lot of pent up energy. Just, it's like when they tell you, just walk it off, walk it off. Uh, there is something to that. So I like to be in nature. This is my yoga mat where I not only exercise, but I sit in quiet and meditate, or just like, yeah, really meditate. Works all the time. Um, and me sitting, just basking in the light, just sitting in quiet is such a huge thing. It gives my mind some time to rest and focus, get answers, get clarity. Sitting in quiet is huge and super underrated, but do it. Yeah, so playing the guitar, it's like a newer activity in the last year. This is a chord chart for a song that I can play, and probably the only song I can play. But I'll sit down and I will just play this song and try to perfect it, because I've had a guitar since I was 17. It was almost 17 years ago. Oh my gosh. And I literally never learned to play it, because every time I would try to learn chords, it like just hurt my fingers, like stretching in, all that stuff. But I was just like, I'm just gonna focus on this one song. And I got into it after like kind of a breakup, and I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna, pick up the guitar. And I had someone teach me, and they wrote out this chord chart for me. And so, yeah, playing the guitar. I mean, I've played other than that, because I've written a couple songs on the guitar in the past, and one will be on a newer EP. But yeah, like it's something that I can put my attention to and focus on, and channel any kind of emotion that was brought up. So that usually calms me down and takes my attention elsewhere. So playing the guitar is great. I did pop my string, however, and still haven't gotten it fixed. Literally, have been playing without a high E for a long time. Yeah. Singing, of course. Um, I've been singing, I don't know. I know I wanted to be a singer since I was 3, and singing is something that there's there's nothing comparable to singing, and the way that it feels to get out certain, like when you're singing certain notes, when you're just emoting all the stuff that's in a song, like there's nothing else like it. So singing is such a great way. It's like when you can't vocalize what it is that you're feeling or want to write down anything. Singing was like always the way for me, where I always felt like I didn't have the right words or I didn't know how to articulate myself. Like a lot of times, like I can't articulate the thoughts that are going through my head because I have a ton of things happening at one time, and like singing is just like this great focus, and it's such a cool thing to find songs that can articulate what it is that you're feeling and to be able to sing that. And so singing is a great one for me. And yeah, such a cool practice. Like, you don't have to be a good singer, just sing. Like, it's a release like no other. So that helps me immensely when I'm triggered. This is me dancing to my own song, Snapshot, which you can get a free download of at mellowvibes.com. Yeah, I like to dance, and I realized it wasn't something that I did enough of. I used to dance all the time. I went to dance camp, I took dance classes even in college, and I used to choreograph dances all the time when I was younger, but I realized I hadn't been dancing a lot, like in the last few years. I think I realized that, and so I made it a point to, in the last year, I think, to start scheduling time to dance, for movement. Well, I wouldn't say just movement because that would be like exercise would be movement, but like actually dance. And I made a dance playlist. I have a couple dance playlists, and I will just put it on for, at least 15 minutes and just like dance around whatever room I'm in. And it feels like so good. Like seriously, just schedule like 10, 15 minutes. Put in your schedule. Like I usually like once a week or once every other week. I'm just, if I haven't, it's in my schedule. Like maybe I would have done it at some point elsewhere during the time, but if I know it's in my schedule, I'm going to do it. So, dancing is something that helps release a lot of, you know, anything that I'm holding on to, that's anything that's going to be keeping me tense. Nope. Drumming. So, I have a djembe that I love, and I started playing the drums in high school. The tubano and the djembe. Did a music class, and I went around to different schools and places actually playing. One of the the select few students that were able to go around and do stuff like that. Um, and yeah, I'll just play to different songs, and that helps a lot to bang away at something. It's so great. So movies, like I am a huge movie buff, like huge. So if I can just zone out for a while when I'm just not in the mood and watch something that is going to be at the same level with me for a while, but then take me up. So I like this to all the boys because I can, like her demeanor, I can remember being like that. And so I like, to see the growth of a character into something bigger and better because I've done that. The Holiday, oh my gosh, that is such a good one for me. because I was like such an iris. and 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 then to see her take back her power, like stuff like that, where it's like you can relate, and then you can relate to it's something like how you used to be, how you used to feel, or maybe so that's probably something that was brought up with whatever triggered you, and then the person ends up so much better. Like that's such a great thing for me. So like watching movies, love that, love it, love it, love it. Hug yourself, such a small and simple thing, but makes a difference. There is something to being hugged and something to hugging yourself. And, just for at least 20 seconds makes all the difference. Just letting yourself know um, that you are, cared for. Even if it's by you, like it should be by you. That's you're the most important person in your life. Um, so letting yourself know that you are cared for, that you are held, you are seen, and that's important. So hugging yourself is a great way for me to let myself know that everything is okay and I am loved. So I'm a baker, and I was baking every single week just to have like a snack. But that's also something therapeutic. I don't know when it became that because I used to just do it just to do it and have something to eat, because I'm frugal like that and I'm not going to go out and buy stuff that when I can make it and know that it's like healthier. I mostly will make vegan desserts, vegan cookies and cakes and stuff like that. So, um, yeah, so that I was doing every single week up until like probably 6 months ago. Um, I'll bake once in a while, and it's a way for me, it's a way to be creative. Um, Baking was always better than cooking for me, but I've also gotten um, I guess, enjoying cooking a little bit more too. And it's just another way. I think once I saw it as just another way for me to be creative, because I always just do like out of the box things with stuff that I was making, and I'll like a lot of times like I typically don't follow recipes, and I'll just throw in a bunch of other things and substitute a bunch of other things, and yeah, it's just a way for me to be creative, and I always like the result. And maybe like once in a very blue moon do I not like the result, but it's another great way to channel my energy elsewhere, but also get like something enjoyable out of it at the end. So baking is a great way to manage triggers. So this is my little altar space, which looks a little bit different from this now. It's been rearranged, but let's see. I made this, actually, I'm not even sure when this was. It may have been in the summer of 2019, I think, or spring. And I was listening to a video about something. I don't know. I listen to a lot of just spiritual and personal development things. And someone was talking about an altar, and I just never thought about having one. And um, and growing up, it was weird because I mean the person was talking about how usually like in Asian restaurants you'll see like they have an altar, um, in their homes and stuff like that. And I'm just like, and I was thinking like I've always noticed that, and I've noticed that in my friends' houses and stuff. Um, I guess it's just weird to say. I guess growing up in the Christian background, I didn't think of that as something that I would do, but like in the Bible, there were altars that you sacrificed, you lay down a sacrifice. So I'm like, and then even when you're in church, when, the pastor will call you down to the altar. And when you're called down to the altar, it's because the sermon spoke to you and you want to lay down all the things that are burdening you, right? So I was just like, why have I never thought of thought of that? I should have an altar so I can lay down things that burden me. And so like specifically, this is the best one and most direct direct activity when it comes to being triggered, because I will sit at my altar space, which I have a lot of like nice, good energy things like high frequency crystals and a Himalayan salt lamp, and I have my cross, and I have like things that I want to manifest. And I have a bowl that's a coconut shell where I will sit down, and actually I have a notepad, and I will write down the things that I want to release, that I want to sacrifice, that are burdening me. And I'll be super specific about it, and I'll write it down and I pray over it. I yeah, I'll pray over it for a while, and then I will burn it in that coconut shell, and I just watch it burn, and it's great. It's like super healing. And when I say that I am like the specific things, if I'm being super specific about it, I am never faced with that, like it's not happening in that way. Let's see, that would be an example. Like if I was super specific about like wanting to release any resentment that I feel for a friend or something, that I don't have that anymore. Maybe resentment might come up somewhere else, but it won't be for that thing that I wrote down and burned. So, which is like something that I think is really cool, and it also reminds me of like, you know, what I focus on in hypnotherapy, because hypnotherapy is for like a specific thing. You tackle just one specific thing at a time, and then that is fully and then that area of your life is different, that specific area that we focused on. So it reminds me of that, because it has never been brought up in the same way after I've like prayed over it and burned it at my altar. And so yeah, and that will take us into, actually, that is also at my altar, is my gratitude jar. So I write notes of gratitude, and usually right after I do the sacrifice of whatever I want to release, I will then write down what I am grateful for, so that I'm just not stuck on that, whatever is bothering me that I'm getting rid of. So I'll write down whatever it is that I'm grateful for. And I have this really pretty gratitude jar that I made last year. And I did it as part of, I think I did it on, well, I was going to do it anyway, but I did it as some kind of little challenge with trying to get people to join in and make their own gratitude jars, because it's so important to have that as a consistent thing in your life, to make sure you are saying thank you. And so, even outside of being, outside of, I guess, when I sacrifice whatever it is that is burdening me, I'll just do gratitude notes anyway. It doesn't have to be right after I've done that. I'll just, I like to write down what I'm grateful for. I like to be cognizant of what I can be thankful for. And I usually will think of at least two things every Friday. I was calling my grazie, my grazie Friday. My thanks, you know. So that is a great practice as well. Well, there you have it. That was a much longer video than anticipated, but all good stuff. So I hope you see it as all good stuff. I hope it is something that you can incorporate or build upon. You know, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think about, honestly, what was it, like 15, 16, 17 things? There was a lot of stuff. There are a lot of healthy coping mechanisms, you know. So, and a bigger thing would be to, like, if you recognize that you have a bad coping mechanism, like maybe drinking when you're triggered, if you could swap that out for something like journaling, you know. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you think. You know, I am here to be of service. And so yeah, ciao for now. Peace and mellow vibes.